Spooky black cloak.
I was born into a rich and important family in Tyrone, Ireland. I was younger of two daughters and we were the only children. My sister was 6 years older than me, so we didn't play much together. When I was young, and I was only 12 years old, when she got married. I remember the day of her wedding well. Many people came, all of them laughing, singing and happy. But I felt sad when my sister left with her new husband, Mr. Carew. She was always very nice to me, nicer than my mother. And so I cried when she went away to her new home in Dublin. My mother and father didn't love me. They wanted sons and were not very interested in me. About a year after my sister got married, a letter arrived from Mr. Carew. He said that my sister was ill and that she wanted to come home to Tyrone and stay with us, to be with her family. I was sad that she was ill, but also very happy about her visit.
They're leaving Dublin on Sunday.
My father told me.
And they're arriving here on Tuesday evening.
Tuesday came, and it was a very long day. Hour after hour came and went, and I listened all the time for my sister and her husband. Now the sky was dark and soon it was midnight. But I couldn't sleep. I listened and waited. Suddenly, at about 1 o'clock in the morning, I heard a noise far away. I ran out of my bedroom and down to the living room. "They're here, they're here," I called to my father. And we quickly opened the front door to see better. We waited there for a few minutes, and we heard the noise again. Somebody crying far away in the night, but we saw nothing. There were no lights and no people there. We went outside, waiting to say hello, and to help my sister with her bags. But nobody was there, nobody came. I looked at my father and he looked at me. We didn't understand.
"I know I heard a noise,"
he said. "Yes," I answered. "I heard it too, father, but where are they?" We went back into the house without another word. We were suddenly afraid. The next day, a man arrived and told us that my sister was dead. On Sunday she felt very ill, on Monday she was worse. And on Tuesday, at about 1 o'clock in the morning, she died. At the same time that we were outside the house in the night, waiting for her. I never forgot that night. For the next 2 years, I was very sad. You could say that I stopped living. I didn't want to do anything or speak to anyone. Mr. Carew soon married another young woman in Dublin, and I felt angry that he forgot my sister so quickly. I was now the only child of a rich and important family. So before I was 14 years old, men started to visit our home. They wanted to meet me and, perhaps, to marry me. But I didn't like any of these men. And I thought I was too young to be married. When I was 16, my mother took me to Dublin.
Dublin is a big city.
She said,
We're going to meet richer and more interesting men than the ones back home in Tyrone. We can easily find you a good husband in Dublin.
In Dublin, I began to be happier. I met a lot of friendly people. And I went dancing every evening. A lot of young men came to speak to me and asked me to dance. I liked talking to them. I started to live and laugh again. And I didn't think about my dead sister all the time. But my mother was not so happy. She wanted me to find a husband quickly. One night, before I went to bed, she came into my room and said,
Do you know Lord Glenfallen?
Oh yes. I answered. He's that ugly old man from Cargillig.
He's not ugly and he's not old, Fanny.
My mother said quickly.
He's from a very rich and important family, too. And he wants to marry you. He'll love you.
Love me, wants to marry me, but he's making a mistake, Mother.
I said. I don't love him. I can't marry somebody I don't love.
Think about it, Fanny.
My mother answered quietly.
He's a good man and he wants to marry you. You're a very lucky young woman.
My mother left the room and I sat quietly for a long time. Lord Glenfallen was a nice, friendly man, I thought. I didn't love him, no, but I did like him. He always talked about interesting things. I never felt happy at home with my mother and father. But I always felt better when I talked to him. The next morning when I saw my mother, I said only one word, yes. Lord Glenfallen and I got married the next spring. And 2 days after our wedding, we said goodbye to my family and left Tyrone. 3 days later, we arrived in Cargillig. And I saw my husband's beautiful house for a first time. It was near a river and there were many trees and flowers in the garden. Birds sang in the trees and the sky was blue. I stood next to him and looked at it all, and I felt very, very happy.
Come, my love,
Said my husband.
you must come in and meet Martha. She cooks and cleans and knows everything about the house.
So we went into the house, and I met Martha, a friendly old woman with smiling blue eyes. She showed me around the house. Suddenly, I felt excited to be there. It was a very happy place. Women sang in the kitchen, men built fires in the living rooms, and there were dogs and cats everywhere.
Come with me now, madam,
Said Martha.
and look at your bedroom. Then we can take up your bags and you can wash before dinner.
I followed her and soon we arrived at a big brown door.
This is your room.
She said, and she opened the door. I stood and looked, suddenly cold with fear. In front of me stood something big and black. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was an old cloak, but without anybody inside it. I jumped back quickly, very afraid, and moved away from the door.
Is something wrong, madam?
Martha asked me.
Nothing. Perhaps it's nothing.
I answered quickly. But I thought I saw something in there. I thought I saw a big black cloak there when you opened the door. Martha's face went white with fear. What's wrong? I asked her. Now you look frightened.
Something bad is going to happen.
She said.
When someone sees the black cloak in this house, we know that something bad is going to happen soon to the Glenfarne family. I saw the black cloak when I was a child, and the next morning old Lord Glenfarne died. Something bad is going to happen now, madam. I know it.
We went down to have dinner. I felt unhappy and afraid, but I didn't say anything to my husband about the black cloak. I wanted to forget about it and be happy again. The next day, Lord Glenfarne and I went for a walk together to look around the house and gardens, because I wanted to know my new home better.
I like this house and all people here.
I said.
And I'm happy to be here with you. It's much better than Tyrone.
My husband was quiet for a long time. He walked with his head down, thinking. Then, suddenly, he turned to me, took my hand, and said,
Fanny, listen to me. Listen carefully. There's something I must ask you. Please, only go into the rooms in the front of the house, never go into the rooms at the back of the building, or into the garden by the back door. Never. Do you understand me, Fanny?
His face was white and unhappy. I understood his words, but I didn't understand why he was suddenly a different man. Here, at Cargillag, he never smiled or laughed anymore. Perhaps the back of the house was dangerous, I thought, but he didn't want to talk about it anymore. We went back to the house without speaking, and again I tried to forget his words and to be as happy as I was before. It was about a month later that I met the other woman for a first time. One day I wanted to go for a walk in the gardens. It was a beautiful day, and I ran up to my room after lunch to get my hat and coat. But when I opened the door of my room, there was a woman sitting near the fire. She was about 40 years old, and she wore a black cloak. Her face was white, and when I looked closely, I saw that her eyes were white too. She was blind.
Madam,
I said.
this is my room. There is a mistake.
Your room.
She answered.
A mistake? No, I don't think so. I don't think there's a mistake. Where is Lord Glenfallen?
Down in the living room, I said.
But who are you, and why are you here in my room?
Tell Lord Glenfallen that I want him.
Was all she said.
I must tell you that I am Lady Glenfallen, and I want you to leave my room now.
I said.
Lady Glenfallen, you are not, you are not.
She cried and hit my face very hard. I cried out for help, and soon Lord Glenfallen arrived. I ran out of the room as he ran in, and I waited outside to listen at the door. I did not hear every word, but I knew that Lord Glenfallen was very angry, and the blind woman was very unhappy. When he came out, I asked him,
Who is that woman? And why is she in my bedroom?
but my husband didn't answer me. Again his face was white with fear. His only words were,
Forget her.
but I did not forget her. And every day it was more and more difficult to talk to my husband. He was always quiet now, always sad and afraid. He sat for hours looking into the fire with his unhappy eyes. But I didn't know why, and he didn't want to tell me. One morning after breakfast, Lord Glenfallen suddenly said,
I have the answer. We must go away, to another country, to France or Spain, perhaps. What do you think, Fanny?
He didn't wait for my answer but left the room very quickly. I sat and thought for a long time. Why must we leave Cargilag? I didn't understand. And I didn't want to go too far away from my mother and father in Tyrone. They were old now, and my father was sometimes ill. They didn't love me very much, but I wanted to be near them. I thought about it all day, and I didn't know what to say to my husband when he arrived back in the evening and came in to dinner. I said nothing. After dinner I was very tired, and I went up to my bedroom early. I wanted to have a good night's sleep and think about it all again the next day. I closed my eyes and went to sleep. But I did not sleep well because I dreamed of the black cloak. Suddenly, I woke up. Everything was dark and very quiet, but somebody was at the end of my bed. There was a hand with a light, and behind the light was the blind woman. She had a knife in her other hand. I tried to get out of bed and run to the door, but she stopped me.
If you want to live, don't move.
She said,
Tell me one thing. Did Lord Glenfallen marry you?
Yes, he did.
I answered.
He married me in front of 100 people.
Well, that's sad.
She said,
Because I don't think he told you that he had a wife. Me, I am his wife. Not you, young woman. You must leave this house tomorrow, because if you stay here, you see this knife? I am going to kill you with it.
Then she left the room without a sound. I didn't sleep again that night. When morning came, I told my husband everything.
Who is the blind woman?
I asked him.
She told me last night that she is your wife, that I am not your wife.
Did you go into the rooms at the back of the house?
Asked my husband angrily.
I told you that you must never go there.
But I didn't.
I answered.
I was in my bed all night. She came to me. Please, tell me what is happening.
My husband's face was white again and he didn't speak for a long time. Then he said,
No, she is not my wife. You are. Don't listen to her. She doesn't know what she is saying.
and he left the room. I ran to find Martha. I didn't like this house anymore. My husband was a difficult man and I didn't understand him. Who was the blind woman? I want to know everything.
Don't cry, madam.
Sighed Martha when I found her.
Sit down and listen to me. What I am going to tell you is not very nice. The blind woman, the woman in the black cloak, is dead. You saw her ghost. She was married to your husband and she was Lady Glenfallen. Nobody knows how she died. Her bedroom was at the back of the house. Somebody saw your husband with a knife in his hand on the night she died. But did he kill her? Nobody knows. When we found her, the knife was on the floor, next to her and her eyes. Somebody cut her eyes out after she died. Perhaps he didn't want her to see his other women, his next wife. And you are.
I didn't wait to speak to my husband again. I left that day. I was too afraid to stay another minute at Cahergilloch. I knew that the blind woman was going to come back again and kill me. I said goodbye to Martha, took my bags, and told my driver to take me back to Tyrone. I am happy living here with my mother and father now. The house is quiet, I sleep well each night, and they are friendlier to me than they were before. Sometimes my dead sister visits me at night, but I am never afraid. She tells me that the blind woman is trying to find me at Cahergilloch and that she wants to kill me. She is jealous of me, but she can never find me there. She must wait for the next Lady Glenfallen.
The end. Don't forget to subscribe this channel for more stories.
Learn English through story.
Diamond cuts diamond.
A poor man was married to a beautiful woman. The man and his wife never quarreled. The husband loved his wife. The wife loved her husband. They were very happy.
But this happy couple had a rich, handsome neighbor. He saw the poor man's beautiful wife, and he fell in love with her.
I want to marry her myself.
He thought.
Every day, when the woman's husband was working in the fields, the rich man went to the poor man's house.
You're a beautiful woman,
He said to the poor man's wife.
but your clothes are old. Why doesn't your husband buy new, pretty clothes for you? I'm sure he doesn't love you. If he loved you, he would buy wonderful clothes for you. Divorce him and marry me. I will buy you beautiful new clothes, the best in the land. Then you will be the most beautiful woman in Ethiopia.
At first the woman didn't listen to the rich man. But he came to her house every day. and every day he said the same things. At last, she began to think.
Perhaps my neighbor is right. Why doesn't my husband buy beautiful, new clothes for me? Perhaps he doesn't love me.
That night, she said to her husband,
Look at me, husband. My clothes are old and ugly. I want new ones. Buy me some new clothes.
Her husband smiled at her.
You don't need new clothes.
He said,
You are the most beautiful woman in the world to me.
She was angry.
Don't you love me?
She said,
If you love me, buy me a new dress.
Her husband loved his wife, and he wanted to please her.
I have only a little money,
He thought.
and I need a new plow. But I want my dear wife to be happy.
So the next day, he went to the market. And he bought a new dress for his wife. He took it home to her, and she put it on.
Thank you, my dear husband.
She cried.
Now I know that you love me.
When the rich man came to see her again, she was wearing her new dress.
You see?
She said to him,
My husband loves me very much. He bought me this beautiful new dress.
The rich man shook his head.
But a good husband doesn't only give his wife new clothes.
He said,
He gives her gold. Where's your gold necklace? Where are your gold rings? Why doesn't your husband give you those?
He opened a box and showed her some beautiful gold jewelry.
Look at these.
He said,
Divorce your husband and marry me. And I give all these to you.
The woman did not listen to him.
Go away.
She said,
I love my husband, and he loves me. And we are happy together.
But the rich man came again. Every day, and every day he showed her the box of jewelry. At last, she began to think.
Perhaps the rich man is right. Why doesn't my husband buy gold for me?
Doesn't he love me?
That day, she didn't make a fire. She didn't cook a meal. Her husband came home late, after a long day in the fields. He was tired and hungry.
There's no dinner for you tonight.
His wife said,
You don't love me.
What?
Her husband cried.
But my darling, I love you more than anything. You are the most wonderful person in the world.
Then why don't you buy me some gold jewelry?
She said,
When a man loves his wife, he gives her a gold necklace and rings for her fingers.
Her husband looked worried.
I spent money on her new clothes.
He thought,
How can I find more for gold? I'll go and see my brother. Perhaps he will lend me the money. I must buy gold for my dear wife. I want her to be happy.
The next day he went to visit his brother.
Lend me some money, brother,
He said.
and I will work for you in your field.
All right,
His brother said.
but you must work hard. There are many stones in my field, and you must move them all away.
Her husband agreed and took the money. He went to the market and bought some gold jewelry. Then he took it home to his wife. His wife was very happy. She put the necklace round her neck and put the rings on her fingers.
Look at me.
She said,
Am I not beautiful?
You're very beautiful.
Her husband said,
If you are happy, I am happy.
She put her arms round his neck.
Thank you, my dear husband.
She said,
Now I know that you love me.
The next day, her husband went out very early. Before the sun rose in the sky, he ran to his brother's field. It was covered with stones.
I must work very hard now.
He thought.
I must start early and stop late. I must pay my debt to my brother.
His wife was working happily at home.
I'll make a wonderful dinner for my husband tonight.
She thought,
He gives me wonderful presents. He works hard for me. I know that he loves me.
Hello.
a voice called out.
Are you there?
The woman went outside. Her rich neighbor was there.
Ah, it's you.
The woman said,
Listen, neighbor, you are wrong about my husband. Yesterday, he bought me this beautiful jewelry. He loves me very much, and I love him. I will not divorce him. I will not marry you.
The rich man was worried.
Her husband loves her too much.
He thought.
If I want her, I must be clever.
At last he said,
Your husband gave you clothes and jewelry. But I can give you more than that.
What do you mean?
The woman cried.
Can your husband make miracles?
The rich man asked.
Miracles? No, of course he can't make miracles.
The woman answered.
Only God can make miracles. Men cannot make them.
But I can.
The man said,
Because I love you, love can make miracles. If your husband loves you, he can make miracles for you. If you love me, I will make miracles for you.
Make a miracle for me now.
The woman said.
I can't.
The rich man answered.
You must promise to love me first. You must leave your husband and come to me. Then I will make wonderful, wonderful miracles for you.
The woman said nothing, and the rich man went away.
To be continued. Learn English through story.
Diamond cuts diamond.
That night, the poor man came home late. He was very tired and hungry. His wife brought water for him, and he washed himself. She brought delicious food for him, and he ate it.
My poor husband,
she thought.
He works so hard for me, and he is so tired and hungry. The rich man is foolish. How can my husband make miracles? It's impossible.
But the next day, and the day after, and the day after that, the rich man came to her house again.
Did your husband make a miracle for you yesterday?
He asked the woman.
Leave him and love me, and I will make many, many miracles for you every day.
At last, the woman began to listen to him. One day, when her husband came home, she was sad.
Wife, dear wife, what is wrong with you?
Cried her husband.
Are you sick?
No,
she said.
I'm sad because you do not love me.
What?
Cried her husband.
But you know that I love you. I bought you new clothes. I bought you gold jewelry. You're the most precious thing in the world to me.
But you don't make miracles for me,
his wife said. Her poor husband was very surprised.
Miracles? Of course, I can make miracles,
he said.
Why do you want a miracle? Who gave you the idea?
Our neighbor came to see me today,
the woman said.
Love makes miracles,
he said.
If a man loves a woman, he will make miracles for her.
Her husband was very worried.
That wicked man wants to take my wife.
He thought.
All this trouble comes from him. When he first came here, she wanted new clothes. Then she wanted gold jewelry. And now she wants a miracle. What can I do? If I don't make a miracle, perhaps my wife will leave me and marry him.
The next day, he went slowly to work in his brother's field.
I must pray,
he thought.
Only God can help me now.
He looked up to heaven.
Oh Lord God,
he prayed.
Please help me to make a miracle. I love my wife and I want to keep her. Don't let this rich man take her from me.
He was moving stones from his brother's field. In the middle of the day, he sat down under a tree to rest. A man was sitting there already.
Who are you?
The poor man asked.
I am a wizard,
answered the man.
And I have a gift for you. Look, here are 2 sticks. They make miracles.
Miracles?
The poor man said. He was happy now.
What kind of miracles?
If you touch a person with the first stick,
the wizard said,
he will become a donkey.
The poor man thought of the rich man, and he smiled.
A donkey?
He said.
That's very good, and if I touch him with the second stick, what will happen?
He will become a man again,
said the wizard. The poor man took the sticks and jumped up.
Oh, thank you, my friend,
he said.
I prayed to God, and He sent you to me.
Now I can keep my wife and punish my enemy.
He ran home.
Wife,
he called out.
Come here, I'm going to make a miracle.
His wife came out the house.
A miracle?
She said.
What miracle?
Look,
said her husband. He touched her with the first stick. At once she became a donkey. She lifted her head and tried to speak, but she could not. Hee-haw, was all she could say. Her husband touched her with the other stick. At once she became a woman again.
Husband, that's wonderful,
she said.
It's a real miracle. How did you do it?
I prayed to God,
her husband said.
and He helped me. And now, wife, I am going to punish my enemy.
Your enemy?
said his wife.
Who is that?
You know my enemy,
her husband said. He was looking at her. He wasn't smiling now.
It's the rich man, our neighbor. He comes to our house when I am working in the fields. He gives you bad ideas. Ask your husband for new clothes.
He says,
Ask him for gold jewelry. Ask him for a miracle. Am I right? Did our rich neighbor give you all these ideas?
His wife said nothing.
And did you listen to him?
Her husband went on. His wife did not look at him. She was ashamed.
I'm sorry,
she said.
It's true. He said all those things. He wanted me to divorce you and marry him, and I listened to him.
And do you want to divorce me and marry him?
Her husband asked. She looked at him. Her eyes were full of tears.
No, dear husband, I want to stay with you forever. And I will never listen to him again.
Then take this stick,
her husband said.
And touch the rich man with it.
He gave his wife the first stick, but he hid the second one in the roof.
The next day, he went to work. Soon, the rich man arrived at the woman's house.
Well,
He asked her,
and can your husband make miracles yet?
Yes,
she said, and she touched him with the first stick. At once, the rich man changed into a donkey.
now,
Said the woman.
you can go to work and help my dear husband.
She took the donkey out to the fields. Her husband was working there. He was moving stones from his brother's field.
Ah,
He said,
a donkey. Now I can finish the job quickly.
From that day, the poor man gave the donkey many heavy loads to carry. The donkey carried stones away from the fields.
It took sacks of wheat to the market, and it brought flour and coffee home again. For many years, the donkey worked for the poor man. The poor man was not so poor now. The donkey was helping him, he was becoming richer. One day, the poor man looked at the donkey. It was tired and old. It stood still, its head was bent down. The poor man was sorry for it. He went into his house and brought out the second stick. Then, he touched the donkey with it. At once, the rich man stood there. But he was not a handsome young man now. He was old, his back was bent, he was very, very tired.
You tried to take my wife away from me.
The poor man said.
That was wrong. Go home now. Don't look at other men's wives again.
The rich man went away, and he never came back again. But the poor man and his wife lived happily together for many more years.
Learning English through Zen Story. Once upon a time, a man went to a Buddhist monk and said,
Sir, please help me. I'm very upset with my life. I don't understand what to do.
Saying this, the man started weeping. The monk consoled him and said,
My friend, tell me in detail, what's the matter?
The man began to tell his sad story and said,
Sir, I live in the nearby village. Once I was the richest man of my village. I would lend money to anyone who came to me for money. But when it was time to return the money, people would start to make excuses and did not return my money. I got married a few years back. I never hide anything from my wife. I told everything to my wife about my past, and would tell everything about my present. But still my wife did not have respect for me. One day, she had a big fight with me. When I asked my neighbor to mediate between me and my wife, she became even more angry and left the house. Many times, I felt that people respect me in the front of me. But they make fun of me behind my back. I have become a laughingstock in my village. People take advantage of my compulsions. Now my business is very down, and my wife has also left me. I don't understand what to do.
After listening to the man, the monk thought for a moment. Then he said,
My friend, the reason behind your plight is that you are very innocent. And you tell others even those things, which you should never tell anyone. Therefore, today I will tell you about 7 things, which you should never reveal to anyone.
The man started listening to Buddhist monk carefully. Then the monk started telling.
The first thing you should never tell anyone is about your sorrow and helplessness. It has been seen that whenever there is any sorrow in our life, we start sharing it with others. We feel that by sharing our sorrow with others, our grief will decrease. But in reality, by doing this, we prove to be a weak and helpless person in the eyes of others. By doing this, most of the people will not help you, but will definitely make fun of you behind your back. And if someone helped you, then he will expect even greater help from you in return. And if you couldn't help him in return, then he will get angry with you. And if by mistake you share your problem with any of your enemies, then they will manipulate your helplessness. Because your enemies will know that right now you are weak and helpless. And this is right time to take revenge from you. Therefore, never share your sorrow and helplessness with others. Also, try to read people's mind while giving them money. Because if you could read their mind, then you will come to know about their intentions. Then you can save yourself from many unwanted circumstances.
Then the monk said,
Second thing, which you should never share with others, is your past mistake and future plans. Whatever mistake you have done in your past, you should never share it with others. You cannot rectify your past mistake by sharing it with others. Rather, you will become a reason for ridicule in the eyes of people. After knowing your past mistakes, people will start making fun of you behind your back. They will start seeing you doubtfully, and their trust in you will also decrease. Even though you have improved in your life, but still people will see you by associating with your past mistakes. And you will not be seen as a trustworthy person. This will spoil your image in society. Also, you should not tell your future plans with others. There are two big disadvantages of doing so. First is when you start telling people about your future goals. Then people start to praise you. However, from inside they feel jealous with you. And when you listen to your praise, then you start to be content. And when you become content, then your enthusiasm subsides. And then you will lose the passion to achieve your goal. Second disadvantage is when you share your future plans with people. Then people start feeling jealous with you. From inside they start to wish your failure. They will try to demotivate you, and if could be possible, they will create obstacles in your future plans. Therefore, you should never tell about your future plans with others and keep it secret. You can tell them only after achieving it.
Then the monk said,
Third thing you should never tell anyone is about your home affairs. You should not tell anyone about matters of your house, What is going on inside your home? Among your family members, what is going on between you and your life partner? It has been seen that often there are frequent small arguments in every house. But matter of the house should never come out. Many times, after a small argument or fight at home, we start sharing our home matters with others. We start to criticize our family members with others. But we forget that the person who is listening to us can humiliate us in public for these things in future. When we start talking about our home matters in front of others, then people get a chance to enter into our domestic affairs. Also, they can take advantage of our domestic dispute, if needed be. And apart from that, when our family members will come to know that we have discussed our family matter with others and criticized them, then they will also feel very bad. And then our relationship with them will get even worse. Therefore, you should never talk about your family matters with others.
Then the monk said,
Fourth thing which you should never tell anyone is about your weakness and your strength. There are two big reasons of not telling anyone about your weakness and strength. First reason is if your enemy came to know about your strength, then they will somehow find some way to tackle your strength. Then it will not remain your strength anymore. Similarly, if you share your weakness with others, then people will start taking advantage of it and can blackmail you in future. Thus, you will always be under their control, and you will have to obey them. Even husbands should never tell his weakness to his wife. And the wife should not tell her weakness to her husband, because even they can sometimes take undue advantage of each other's weakness. And the one whose weakness is known to other will have to be under suppression of other.
Then the monk further said,
The fifth thing which you should never tell anyone is about your income and your savings. There are main two reasons behind not revealing your income to others. First reason is if you earn handsome income every month, and your friend and relatives came to know about your income, then first of all, they will start to feel jealous with you and will start asking you to lend them money. And if you lend them money, then they will be reluctant to return the money to you, because they would feel that you earn more than enough and you have enough savings. Therefore, you are not in need of money, and this will spoil your relationships with them. On the other hand, if your income is low, and your friends and relatives came to know about your low income, then they will not have due respect for you. They will make fun of your low income behind your back. Also, They will not lend you money when you need it, because they would feel that you don't earn enough income to return their money. This will also spoil your relationships with them, and you will not be able to earn due respect in society. Therefore, it is wise not to tell others about your income and savings.
Then the monk said,
Sixth thing which you should never tell anyone is about your humiliation. If you have ever been humiliated in your past for any reason, then you should never tell about it to anyone, not even your life partner, because at that time, your life partner might speak in your favor. But later, they will keep on taunting you about that insult again and again. Similarly, if other people came to know about your insult in the past, then they can any time humiliate you by talking about your insult in front of other people. Therefore, you should never tell anyone about your humiliation, if you ever had.
Then the monk said,
Seventh and last thing which you should never tell anyone is about your friends and enemies. However, most of the people are least concerned about who are your friends and who are your enemies. But still, this is a sensitive information, which should not be shared with anyone, because those people who wish bad for you can take advantage of this information. If your enemies came to know who are your friends, then they can make good relations with your friends and instigate them against you. Similarly, if your friends know who are your enemies, and if in future you had fight with your friends, then they can join hands with your enemies and harm you. Therefore, you should never tell anyone who are your friends and who are your enemies.
Having said that, the Buddhist monk became silent. Then he said,
My friend, if you take care of these 7 things and never reveal them to anyone, then surely you will be able to live a happy and respected life in the society.
The man had tears in his eyes, tears of remorse. Today, he realized what a big mistake he had made by telling all his secrets to others. He had suffered a lot because of it. Everyone considers him fool. In front of the monk, he decided that now he will never repeat this mistake and will never tell these 7 things to anyone. Then he bowed down to the monk and left from there. So, friends, these are 7 sensitive things which you should never share with others. If you can also stop sharing these 7 things with others, then you too can live a secure, happy, and respected life.
Learn English Through story. Whenever you feel sad, listen to this story.
A motivational story about Raven. This story is for those people who are not satisfied with their life and consider others to be happier than them. To understand this story, watch till the end. Thank you. Once upon a time, a raven was very unhappy with his life. One day, he started crying while sitting on a branch of a tree. A monk was sitting on the tree. Just then, a drop of the raven's tears fell on the monk's cheek. The monk raised his head and saw that a raven was crying. The monk asked him,
"What's the matter, my friend? Why are you crying?"
The raven said,
"O wise one, I am very upset with my life. No one loves me. People shoo me away in disgrace. No one gives me anything to eat. Everyone hates me. Death is better than such a life."
Hearing the raven's word, Monk's heart was filled with compassion. He said to the raven,
"My friend, we should learn to be happy, in whatever condition we are in."
But the raven did not understand the wisdom of the monk and keep on crying. Then the monk said,
"Don't be upset. Tell me, what do you want to be? I can make you that with my mantra."
Raven became happy and said,
"O blessed one, if you want to do me a favor, then please make me a swan."
The monk said,
"Okay, I will make you a swan. But first, go to Swan and ask him whether he is happy with his life or not. You go and find out till then. I'll wait for you here."
Raven happily flew away to meet Swan. He saw a swan swimming in a pond. He went to Swan and said,
"How beautiful you are. You are as white as milk. Everyone loves you. You must be the happiest bird in the world."
Swan said to the raven with a sad heart,
"No, my friend, I am not happy. There are so many beautiful colors in the world. But I don't have any. Color white is nothing color. I think Parrot must be the happiest bird in the world. He is so colorful."
Hearing this, the raven flew away from there and reached the parrot. He said to Parrot,
"O parrot, you are so colorful and beautiful. You must be the happiest bird in the world."
The parrot said to the raven with sad heart,
"No, my friend, I am not happy. You see, people keep parrots in cage. I am always afraid that someone may hold me and lock me in a cage. I think Peacock is the happiest bird in the world. He is also much more colorful than me."
Hearing this, the raven flew around, looking for a peacock. After searching for a long time, he finally got a peacock, which was in a cage in a zoo. He saw that hundreds of people had gathered to see him. After the people left, the raven approached the peacock and said,
Dear peacock, you are so beautiful. Every day thousands of people come to see you. And look at me, when people see me, they immediately shoo me away. I think you must be the happiest bird on the planet.
The peacock replied sadly. He said,
I always thought that I was the most beautiful and happy bird on the planet. But because of my beauty, I am entrapped in the zoo. When people pluck my colorful feathers to make decorative things, it hurts me a lot.
The peacock took a deep sigh and said,
I am not happy, my friend.
The raven was surprised to hear this from the peacock. He asked him,
If you are not happy, then whom do you think is the happiest bird in the world?
The peacock said,
I have examined the zoo very carefully, and I have realized that you, the raven, are the only bird not kept in cage. People don't try to catch you and entrap you in the cages. So for the past few days, I have been thinking that if I were a raven, I could happily roam everywhere, and I would be free.
Hearing this, the raven flew away from there. And today, for a first time, he was feeling happy to be a raven. He came back to that sage and said,
O wise one, I do not want to be anything else. I am fine what I am.
If you see our lives, we will find that this is our problem too. We make necessary comparison with others, and then become sad and curse ourselves. We don't tell you what we have, and this all leads to vicious cycles of unhappiness. You should learn to be happy in what you have, instead of looking at what you don't have. There will always be someone who will have more or less than you have. If you keep comparing yourself to others, you will never be able to be happy. A person who is satisfied with what he or she has is the happiest person in the world.
So remember, always keep smiling.
Small story, big lesson.
Once a child came to visit his grandfather during his summer holidays. He used to play with his grandpa all the time. One day he said to his grandpa,
When I grow up, I want to become a successful man. Can you tell me some ways to be successful?
Grandfather nodded yes and took the boy with him to a nearby nursery.
From nursery, his grandpa bought 2 small plants and came back home.
Then he planted one plant in a pot and keep it inside the house. And planted another one outside the house.
What do you think which of these two plants will grow better in future?
Grandfather asked the boy.
Boy kept thinking for some time and then said,
The plant inside the house will grow better because it is safe from every danger. While a plant outside is at risk of many things, like strong sunlight, storms, animals.
Grandfather smiled and said,
Let's see what happens in future.
After that, Boy left with his parents. After 4 years, Boy came to visit his grandfather again. When the boy saw his grandfather, he said,
Grandpa, last time I asked you some ways to be successful. But you did not tell me anything. But this time you have to tell me.
Grandfather smiled and said,
Sure, but first let's take a look at plants that we bought a few years back.
Saying this, Grandfather took the boy to a place where he had planted a small plant in a pot. They saw that the plant had turned into a tree. Then he took the boy to look at the plant which they had planted outside. There they saw that a huge tree stood, its branches spread far and wide, providing shade to passers-by. Now, Grandfather looked at the boy and asked,
Tell me which plant grew more, which is more successful.
Boy replied,
The one we plant outside. But Grandpa, how is this possible? That plant must have faced so many dangers, still it grew so big.
Grandpa smiled and said,
Yes, plants outside had to face many things, but dealing with problems had its benefits too. Plants outside had the freedom to spread their roots as much as they wanted. Problems like storms made its roots stronger. Today it is so strong that a small storm cannot cause any harm to it. So, what I am about to tell you, always remember it, then you will be successful in whatever you do. In life, if you always make comfortable choices, then you will not be able to grow as you can. If you are ready to face this world despite all the dangers, then no goal is impossible for you to achieve. Never think of problems as hurdles, but think of them as steps towards success.
Boy took a long breath and stared at the tree, and he understood his grandpa's words. Obstacles that we consider enemies in life, the same obstacles make us stronger and more successful in life. Similarly, our life is like a great adventure filled with twists and turns that might seem like obstacles blocking our path. But guess what? These obstacles are like puzzles waiting to be solved. Just think about when you play a game. The fun part is figuring out how to overcome challenges. Life works the same way. Each hurdle you face is a chance to learn, grow, and become even stronger. So, don't let these roadblocks discourage you. Embrace them, tackle them, watch yourself, level up in the game of life. You've got the skills, determination, and spirit to conquer anything that comes your way. Hope you gain some value from this story and try to implement it in your life. And always keep rising. Life for yourself, not for others.
Thank you for learning with us. Don't forget to subscribe my channel. Have a good day and see you next time.